allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And we will call our commission meeting to order. Well, this morning, our first presentation is our City Maker Award, if that is the line, and I'm looking for Chris Ann Long for that purpose, and I don't see that, so I'm going to go to our next item, which is our Financial Wellness in Retirement, and we have Sherry Watson, who is our Retirement Service Director, going to make that presentation. So Sherry, you are ready to go. Rains and shines. I know you're here.
What's that?
We're doing that. Thank you for asking. That's why it's there.
How are you, Palmer?
Good, how are you?
Good. You agree today?
You're representing well.
There you go. It was a retiring file.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Sherry Watson. I'm the Director of Retirement Services, and I wanted just to say welcome and thank you for allowing me to present today. I'm going to try to give you an update and an overview. Sorry, Kevin. I'm going to try to give you an update and an overview of retirement services and our assets here at the city and the security that it offers our employees. We are the board and plan administration as well as records and data administration for the General Employee Pension Plan. This includes administration of meetings. On average, we hold about 20 annual meetings per year, and these meetings are held to review the performance of our investments within our pension plan. We communicate and coordinate to all service providers. We have approximately 40 money managers in our general pension plan, as well as investment advisors, attorneys, actuaries, auditors. We provide all member communications, as well as processing our retiree benefits. Retirement Services processes on average 100 or more transactions regarding our benefits monthly. We maintain all physical and electronic records, including our plan financials, as well as paying all pension plan invoicing. All data record keeping is kept with us, and we, along with our awesome payroll department, ensure payment of retiree benefits are paid both timely and accurately. Our plan's governance is extreme. We follow IRS guidelines. We have local ordinances we must adhere to, any collective bargaining agreements within the city. We have an investment policy statement for our pension plan. We follow the Florida Commission on Ethics, and we also follow the state of Florida retirement system. We are not ERISA, but we do follow all ERISA guidelines. Here at the city, you as commissioners oversee our 3 pension plans that we have at the city. We have a police pension plan, a fire pension plan, and of course the general employee pension plans that are maintained and monitored by each pension board. And they all have trustees on there that are very experienced and educated trustees. The trustees, with the help from the actuary, are responsible for investment decisions, asset allocation, actuarial assumptions, and contribution recommendations needed from the city to meet these assumptions and fund benefits to members. The actuarial science behind the pension. So contributions plus an investment return for the pension plan should equal benefit payments and plan expenses. Actuarial science is a method of using math to assess what will happen next. In this case, the science is used to quantify the plan expenses, pension payments, and any other potential future costs that have a level of uncertainty surrounding them. The balance to those costs are contributions made by employees and employer, plus our plan's investment returns. So the first, and you can see the largest contribution into the pension, is our investment return. The second, of course, is going to be the employee contributions. And of course, the last is the employer contribution. Our investment return is required by our board to earn at least 6.75% annually. The return was lowered this year from previous year of 7.25%. due to events surrounding our environment. As you can see from this chart, this return provides the most assets again into the pension plan. There are 3 pension plans in our general employees pension. Over time, our plans had to be modified due to the larger number of employees receiving benefits. This ensures our pension plan will be well funded for current and future retirees. The city's initial pension plan was Plan A. Those are hired for all employees hired prior to 2003. Plan B was implemented in October of 2003, and Plan C became effective in February of 2012. February in 2012, we actually implemented a hybrid plan, so it's not all just the pension. It also encompasses a 457 plan, which is similar to a 401k in the private sector. Every October, we are required to modify our contribution rates based on our actuarial reporting. Beginning October 2022, our contribution rates will remain unchanged from current rates as our unfunded liabilities are reflected as 0 until this year's reporting has been completed, and then we will reflect a rate of return effective the following year, but right now the rates are going to stay the same on October 1st. Currently, the contribution rates for Plans A and B on the employee side is 7.83%, and Plan C is 3.08%, keeping in mind that Plan C is a hybrid mixture of a pension and a 457 plan. The employer is actually contributing 16.67% into the pension plan. This I wanted to kind of give you an update on. This is our workforce trend, and I wanted to give you some comparisons on this. I wanted to start off with 1985. In 1985, you can see we had 1,240 active plan members working at the city with 274 retirees. So that's just a point in time I wanted to kind of show you, and then fast forward. So to 2021, which is our fiscal year end of 9/30 last year, we had 1,331 plan members, with 162 of those people in drop. We also had 1,300 retirees, so you can see how much bigger that number has. So I wanted to kind of compare it to last year's report. Last year's report, we had 1,390 plan members, so you can see the difference. The active membership has gone down in 1 year, and of that, we had 181 in drop. We had 1,232 retirees, and now we have 1,300. So the workforce is retiring a little bit more. On the contribution side, Employees in the city contributions were over $15 million, and we paid out over $41 million. So that right there tells you a little bit of how that works when we have to pay out more than what we contribute. And that's where the investment return comes into play. So last year, and I'm going to go over it with you in just a second, our pension plan was up very high. And that's how we're able to make that benefits payment. The average annual benefit is $34,000. The average age of a retiree is 68 years. Last year, it was 69 and a half. So it has gone down a little bit. The average age entering retirement is 56 years, but that does include those people that go into drop as well. They can go into drop and they defer their retirement option. They can stay up to another 5 years. So that does include those entering drop. However, with the implementation of Plans B and C, the age to retire changed. The normal retirement age in those plans are age 62. So there's no penalty once they retire at age 62. If they decide to retire before then, it's a 5% penalty every year. So that is going to make that average age of entering retirement extremely higher, because that's a huge penalty to pay when you retire. So we also wanted to add in this year the average age of service for our retirees. And so we actually calculated it, and it was on average 21 years that they worked here. So this is my favorite slide. This is our benefits and our balances in our side of our pension plans. This is as of 9/30 of 2021. So you can see the employee's pension. We had over $811 million, and our rate of return was 25.62%. The police officers had over $183 million, and their return was 23.51. The firefighters was over $133 million, and their return was 23.67%. We also have our defined contribution plan and the 457, and at this time, it was almost $142 million. We also have a health reimbursement plan. These are for the newer employees since 2003. We actually take 0.5% out of each of their paychecks, and we contribute it into this health reimbursement plan. This account is used for them in retirement, and it helps reimburse medical costs. The money goes in tax-free, and it's never taxed. And they can use it, they get a debit card, and they actually can hand the debit card in retirement to pay for their medical expenses. And that account was over $5.2 million. So the total retirement assets this year is $1.2 billion. So, and that's what we are overseeing and watching that for all of our employees. So fast forward a little bit, because I try to give you guys more of a realistic market view. Not doing so good. So I wanted to kind of give you an update on that. So with the general performance, we are down 8.9%. Fire is down 6.8%, and police is down 5.9%. This is as of May this year. Just like with our personal accounts, this market is affecting all of us. We have other investments in these pension plans that are to help offset some of the losses. My personal account, we're down a lot more than the 8%. So the pension plan, our investment advisors, they are watching it heavily, and they're watching our alternative investments that we have in each one of these pension plans. So I wanted to kind of introduce to our trustees. I'm not sure if they're here. Tori was going to be here. I think she's going to be presenting. She may not be here yet. But I wanted to kind of introduce you again to our trustees. They've been here a long time. They're very educated. We do require our trustees get certified every year at the FPPTA, which is just the Florida Public Pension Plan Trustees. And I wanted you to kind of know the dedication that these trustees have. Tim Hart is our chairman, and he has been on the board for 13 years. Ron Tomlin is our vice chairman. I'm sorry, Tim's been on the board for 14 years. Ron Tomlin has been on the board for 19 years. Ron is elected by the employees, and he may be retiring after this year. Tori Bombard has been on the board for 13 years, and she's employee elected as well. Chris Diaz is one of our newer trustees. He's been on the board for 3 years, and he is elected by the trustees themselves. Rick Lilliquist has been on the board for 3 years, and he is commission appointed. So you guys appointed Rick. He is a retiree as well from the city. Jeff Stearns is in our finance department, and he has been on the board for 13 years. He's also appointed by the commission. And our newest member, Jim Studiali, he has been on the board for 7 months. He's out of town today, or he would be here. He's a retiree from the city, and he is also employee elected. So in total, we have 3 commission-appointed trustees, 3 employee-elected trustees, and 1 is elected by our board. And our staff. So the last couple years, everyone knows it's been really difficult. So I kind of wanted to introduce you to our staff. They're actually here this morning, so I will be doing that. I, of course, am Sherry Watson, the director. I have Carrie Whistler, my pension benefits specialist. Carla Bibby, who is our pension benefits assistant right now. She graduates at the end of this year with her business administration degree, and she will become an analyst on our team. Jennifer Magnetico, who you guys all know from downstairs, she joined our team in December, and she was our receptionist down at City Hall here. And of course, Paula Sousa. She is our godsend from finance. She is allowing us to put everything on the computers. She is making all these programs so that our employees, they don't have to come and take time out of their busy day. They can go on their computer and actually calculate their benefits and plan for their futures. She is making our lives so much better. So I just really want to thank them. So we handle a lot of inquiries that come to our offices. The good part is the experience that these girls handle. We've had a lot of heartache in the last 2 years with our active employees as well as our retirees. And for them to come into our office and actually meet with someone who has empathy, who knows how to help them, who knows how to direct them and guide them, it's really appreciative. And lastly, of course, if anyone needs to contact us, you can go to the City of Lakeland's website and look under Retirement Services, or you can send emails to retirementservices@lakelandgov.net. Any questions?
Yes, I have a couple and an original comment. Anyone who is kind of bored by this presentation would recognize you're not getting that pension, and those of you who are very interested in this presentation, and I understand that. But this is an extremely important role that this department plays, because in protecting $1.2 billion plus in assets and making sure that employees are provided for, it's dicey in a world of unpredictability in terms of earnings as you go forward, and scary to some degree for employees who are wanting to make certain that their interests are represented well in terms of those investment portfolios as we go forward. I had one question on a slide, and by the way, in summary, thank you for your leadership in that. But if you go 4 slides back.
Yes, sir.
And where we talk about the ages.
Yes, sir.
Of the average age, bottom right, average age entering retirement, 56 years. Talk to us about that number just a second.
So in the prior days, we have 3 pension plans, remember, so we call one the plush plan. That was Plan A. There's not very many people left in Plan A. There's still around at least over 100. Yes. So with those people, so there's a few of you in here, but
they're glad they're here. And they're still standing, literally.
Here too. So in that plan, the early retirement age was age 50, and normal retirement age was age 60. So between 50 and 55, there was about a 15% penalty, and then after 55 to 60, it went down to 10%. So those people are fortunate enough, and they've been here a long time, they deserve everything they have, but their penalties weren't that high. That's why they implemented Plan B in 2003. They made early retirement age 52, normal retirement age 62, but there's a 5% penalty every year. So that could be a 50% penalty if they took it at age 52. So what Plan A people, once they all retire, or they interdrop or what have you, once that group is gone, that age is going to rise significantly, because who wants to take that type of a penalty on their retirement? So that's why I wanted to show you that and explain kind of a little bit about that.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And you covered that. I didn't get it.
Yes, sir.
So it's the learner that was the problem.
No, it's confusing. It gets confusing. So, yes, sir.
Other comments or questions? Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Sherry, for sharing
this morning. And again, looking at how well we did this in the past fiscal year, and as you just mentioned, in the current fiscal year, with the market where it is today, and hopefully, as you just indicated, our analysts, investment analysts are watching, and along with you all, my question would be, how well are we making sure those things are being done? Because as we know, with the effects of the market today and how things are going, and the rising costs of everything, are we just making sure that our investment advisors and those analysts working with our board, and I know the board will educate people in the finance world, which should be, of course, to make sure those things are done right so we can have a good return in some respect?
So they have been anticipating this. A lot of people have been anticipating a market correction, and it's been going on for a long time. They've been discussing it. Last year, they actually were working with our actuaries, our investment advisors, with our trustees, and we did lower the rate of return from 7.25% to 6.75%. So that will help on the return of the actual pension plan. So with that being said, the market is down. But if you remember a couple years ago, I think we made maybe 3% on the market, and then last year we made 25%.
Yeah.
So it's so fluctuating with this market. They are concerned, they are watching it, but we are not just in the 60-40 combination anymore, 60 equity, 40 fixed income. We have alternative investments. It's a variety of internal alternative investments. You guys are more than welcome to always come to our meetings. Those investment advisors are there, even for your personal accounts. They actually give us updates on the economy, what they see is happening, where we should be moving to. We actually have a meeting on July 26th, and it will be here. I think it's downstairs in the large conference room for building inspection. We always invite you to come to that. You can ask your personal questions to them. They will answer you, because this market is uncertain right now. No one's seen this before, so we're just kind of following it, but we are not fully invested in equities or fixed income any longer.
And we are making sure that our employees and are aware of the meeting that you just mentioned. They are aware of the July meeting and all.
Absolutely, sir.
To make sure they get it. I know we do, but I just want to make sure people hear that we do make sure employees are well aware of these meetings so they can go and ask any questions they may have about their particular portfolio.
Always. Yes, sir. And we do have quite a few employees come sit in our meetings with us. So, and I think if nothing else, they want to hear what the pension's doing and making sure,
Sure.
they're ensuring of that. But they also want to know about their own personal accounts, because right now our 457s are being hit kind of hard because we are in the stock market just like everyone is right now. So they are very concerned. We all are concerned. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We really appreciate your work in the
Yes, sir.
presentation.
Thank you.
You might recall when the Americans with Disabilities Act passed, it seems like it could have been yesterday. It was 32 years ago. And so today we are going to do our proclamation on the American with Disabilities Act, and Jenny Stykes is going to bring up a team, probably of people, or at least yourself, to receive that. So whoever you'd like to invite up. And I know we have several people here to help celebrate this proclamation as we go forward. So come on up if you made the effort to be here. Let's do this, and then I'll hand this to you, and you can make some comments, and we can take a picture. All right. Good morning. Good to see you all. Whereas more than 1.5 billion people worldwide are individuals with disabilities, 1.5 billion. Whereas in the United States, it is estimated that more than 60 million people, or 1/5 of the population, are individuals with disabilities. And whereas for much of our nation's history, individuals with disabilities had little protection from discrimination in housing, employment, or community participation. And whereas in 1990, in keeping with our nation's support of protections against all forms of discrimination, the United States Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, known as ADA. And whereas George H.W. Bush signed the significant legislation to have an effective date of July 26, 1990. And in January of 2017, the City of Lakeland created the Lakeland Alliance for Accessibility to provide citizens and professionals with the opportunity to work together to improve the quality of life for individuals with disabilities in the city. And whereas the City of Lakeland remains committed to valuing and serving all of its citizens and visitors with disabilities, I, therefore, H. William Mutz, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, and on behalf of our entire commission, do hereby remind our citizens that July 26, 2022 is the 36th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in Lakeland, Florida. In witness thereof, I've attached my seal. Jenny?
Thank you, Mayor Mutz and commissioners and city managers. Actually, 32nd anniversary, but we'll be celebrating every anniversary, I'm sure, up until the 36th.
Oh, did I?
And
I have 32nd on.
I hope I'm still here then. We have some of our members were not able to come today, but today we have Lisa Miller, who's on the Polk County School Board, Cheryl Brown, who's the president and CEO of Lighthouse for the Blind and Low Vision, Jackie Bowman, who is the past founder of the Hearing Loss Association in Lakeland, Mickey Brown, who's co-founder of Noah's Landing in Lakeland, and Lauren Curry, who's the director of Aging and Disability Resource Services for the Senior Connection Center. So between these folks who come to our meetings and input from members of the public, that's what drives the accessibility changes we're making in the city. And our communications department recently put together a wonderful brochure for us, which starting this week will be in the lobby. It tells you a little bit more about the ADA, and it has a QR code that will take you to our website with more information about what the city is doing. And we will have it in both English and Spanish in the lobby for folks. And anyone is always welcome to call or email me with any questions or concerns. It doesn't even have to be about yourself. If you have a friend or family member with a disability and you've noticed they've encountered obstacles in the city, please let us know. As Mayor Mutz said, the percentage is 1 in 4 adults in this country experiences disability, and that number is going to get higher with the aging of the population. So we really do want your input to help us drive that change for more accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. And so if you hold this, please, we'll take a picture. And we'll kind of go back in here. Are you good there?
Yes. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next, we have Buffalo Soldiers Day, July 18th. That's today. Here to receive the proclamation is Doris Moore Bailey, and I believe there's some other people as well, so come on up. Actually, I don't see Doris. Because she's out of town, she could not have Scotty Beamer, and so we are going to read this without that. Who'll be receiving the proclamation then? So Mr. Ruffin will read a statement after we get done. Come on up, everyone. This is today. This will give you a little history on Buffalo Soldiers as a roundout, perhaps, of some of the things you may not be aware of. Whereas on July 28, 1866, recognizing the contribution of more than 180,000 African-American soldiers who fought to preserve the Union during the Civil War, the United States Congress established 6 regular Army regiments of black enlisted soldiers. Now, of those 6 units, the 9th and the 10th Cavalry Regiments eventually became 2 of the most highly decorated units in American military history. Despite suffering the discrimination and the injustice that plagued all black African Americans during that segregation era, that members of the 9th and 10th Cavalry Regiments served with pride and distinction. Today we celebrate their outstanding legacy of service, and whereas organized at Greenville, Louisiana and Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, respectively, the 9th and 10th Cavalry Regiments played critical roles in the development of the western United States, in addition to protecting settlers as they crossed the frontier via wagon wagon trains and railroads, these skilled horsemen and soldiers assisted in constructing roads and forts while pursuing cattle thieves and other outlaws. During a battle in 1867 near Fort Hays, Kansas, Cheyenne warriors remarked that the black American soldiers fought as fiercely and with as much strength as buffaloes. Hence, members of the 9th and 10th Cavalries proudly adopted the name Buffalo Soldiers as a badge of honor. And whereas July 28th commemorates annually the day we remember the courage, strength, and sacrifice of Buffalo Soldiers Day on their formation, the first regular Army regiments comprised of African American soldiers occurred on September 21st, 1866, 17 months after the end of the Civil War. Established by Congress, these regiments were the first peacetime all-black regiments in the regular U.S. Army. And from 1879 to 1890, the Buffalo Soldiers earned the highest citations. And whereas the United States Congress Senate Joint Resolution 92 designated July 28, 1992 as Buffalo Soldiers Day and requested the President proclaim observance of that occasion, and whereas in 1898, the Buffalo Soldiers camped on Lake Wyre's North Shore for 3 weeks before proceeding to Cuba to fight in the Spanish-American War 124 years ago, a Buffalo Soldiers historical marker erected in 2019 is a recognized stop along the Florida Black Heritage Trail. And whereas in June 2013, in coordination with the Lakeland Juneteenth Rodeo, Doris Moore Bailey, Beverly Bailey, and the Juneteenth Committee educated horse riders about the Buffalo Soldiers Lake Wyre marker and encouraged their reenactment. Doris Moore Bailey organized the first Buffalo Soldiers Commemoration at Lake Wyre Historic Site in 2015. Now, therefore, I, H. William Mutz, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, do hereby proclaim with the full enthusiastic support of its commission for July 28, 2022 to be officially regarded as Buffalo Soldiers Day in the City of Lakeland.
Good morning. I read this statement in absentia for Mrs. Moore Bailey. It was through the Juneteenth rodeo in 2013 and organizing the first Buffalo Soldier marker commemoration at Lake Wyre by Mrs. Moore Bailey and the Juneteenth Committee that the reactors were introduced. The new Buffalo Soldiers marker is nice, and we are grateful that it remains at the Lake Wyre location. Perhaps in the near future, there will be an allocation of funds to illuminate the marker's location. Since it is listed on the Florida Historical Trails, she asked me to thank the mayor and the commission for their efforts in helping to make this a reality. I also like to thank all of the people present here today, her husband and grandson, and I don't know if they want to say anything or not, but thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Buffalo Soldiers and Juneteenth Committee.
Thanks for all being here. We'll take a quick picture. Thank you. Should have gotten a good one in that.
Mayor,
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
the Chad McLeod is not here today, but the CRA meeting last month, Platform Art came and presented their platform, and the CRA went ahead and agreed to make their last $24,000 payment to facilitate the completion of that monument to be coming forth.
That's a different one.
Right, this is the monument that'll be in Veterans Park.
Right.
That we're talking about, not the marker. Yes,
Right.
that's right. Which will be a beautiful monument when it is complete. Thank you. Then our last proclamation we have today is Parks and Recreational Month, July 18th, 2022. To receive this proclamation is Bob Donahue, Director of Parks and Recreation, and the cultural campers of our TASC, which is the Teen Adventure Service Camp, and Joey Pawlowski, leader of TASC. Come on up. This will be a full stage.
All the summer campers.
How are you guys doing this summer? Good. All right, great. Is this your first proclamation you've been up here for? No, not you. Last year too. Good job. Keep coming on up. Keep coming up. Still around. Shorter than the Where's Mr. Donahue?
Right here, Mayor. I just want to read to you the record. I'll let the All-Stars get in the picture today, please. TASK is our Teen Adventure Summer Camp. They do a lot of working on summer projects. They do a lot in our community, and we're really proud of this group. They do service projects such as planting native plants at 7 wetlands. They help with the nursery, Interact Alliance, Visti, Kids Pack. They do career opportunities and learning, and that's what the camp's all about. Of course, they have a lot of fun. We do take them to various locations, but this group actually gives back to the community. And we talk about impacting lives. Joey Boholsky, who's in charge of the program this year, he also started out as a summer kid that in our basketball program, and how you come back years later, get your education, and come back and lead a group. And we're real proud of Joey for everything he's done for us.
Thank you, Joey. Anything you want to say and add?
Here.
If you ever have any trouble sleeping at night, do a summer camp for 2 months. You'll be in bed by 8:30. No, but these kids are great. They go through an interview process, so they come in, we get them ready for in the future. They're all good. I wish nothing but the best. Some of them are going to high school. A couple of class clowns there in the back, but they'll be fine. That's about it. So.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. I appreciate your leadership in doing that, especially coming through. All right, let me read the proclamation. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of our communities throughout this country, including the city of Lakeland, which helps to promote health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks. You got to remember just how much parks add to life and the quality of life, and just not take this for granted. Whereas Parks and Recreation promote time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recs is a leader of providing healthy meals, nutritional services, education, and cultural arts programming, and supporting activities such as an out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education, which are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community and is the essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure maintaining the ecological beauty within our community and providing a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and the City of Lakeland enthusiastically recognizes the benefits of parks and recreation resources, I, Julie Mutz, Mayor of the City of Lakeland, on behalf of the entire Commission, do hereby proclaim July 2022 as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Lakeland, and then attached our seal. So who would like to hold the proclamation for the picture? All right. That's why volunteering is important. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, it's going to be a crowded stage, but if we could get everybody to move forward. We've got a lot of other representatives from our Parks and Recreation Department in the back of the room. I'd like for all of you, if you would, please come
all right,
forward.
the Parks and Rec people in this room, come on down.
All in the back, right?
All those Plan A, Lisa Lillyquist, Lisa.
How you doing?
Keep coming.
Man, how you doing? Hey, baby, how you doing?
Thank you for doing that, City Manager Strauss. Appreciate that very much. Slide. We have people on this side. This is the new side to go to. Yes, you want to join this side. Okay. Tighten up the sides a little more this way. How's that?
Okay, I see everyone.
Pass on three.
That's
One,
good.
two.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. That is so fun to do because it is so true that one of the distinctives of our city are our parks. And when you think about other towns and you wonder sometimes why you go to communities that don't have the beautiful parks that we have here, it is because they don't make the allocation of cost to that and the priority for them. And so I'm so glad we live in a city that does and continues to. Well, that brings us to our committee reports and related items, and we'll start with our municipal boards and committee report, and that will be done by Commissioner McCarley, because Commissioner Madden was out of town, who's the normal chairman, and she has deferred this to her, and we always miss you. And she was representing Lakeland as she was out of town, I should point out. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. The Municipal Boards Committee met in the City Commission Conference Room on Friday, July 13th. Mayor Bill Mutz and Commissioner Sarah McCarley, members, were present. Commissioner Stephanie Madden, chair, was absent. Commissioners Bill Reed and Chad McLeod were present, along with staff and the media. Commissioner Sarah McCarley called the meeting to order at 8:10 a.m. The purpose of the meeting is to receive and act upon the following recommendations. Beautification Board, recommendation from Bill Cohen to reappoint Teresa Lobbin to an additional 3-year term beginning retroactive May 21st, 21 and ending May 20th, 2024. Appoint Cherie Trubiano to a 3-year term beginning July 18th, 2022 and ending July 17th, 2025. Number 2, Code Enforcement Board, recommendation from Sunny Marshall to appoint Lolita Berrien as a regular member to fulfill an unexpired term retroactive to March 29th, 2022 and ending May 31st, 2022, and to an additional 3-year term beginning retroactive June 1, 2022 and ending May 31, 2025. Lakeland Housing Authority, recommendation for Mayor Bill Mutz to appoint Annie Gibson to a 4-year term beginning July 18th, 2022 and ending July 17th, 2026. Planning and Zoning Board, recommendation for Matthew Lyons to reappoint Joe Locke to an additional 3-year term beginning August 19th, 2022 and ending August 18th, 2025. Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals, recommendation for Matthew Lyons to appoint Kristen Tesmer to a 3-year term beginning August 2nd, 2022 and ending August 1st, 2025. Action. Mayor Bill Mutz moved to approve the appointments. Commissioner Sarah McCarley seconded, and the motion carried unanimously. And just for general information only, the Employee General Pension Board reappointed Christopher Dias to an additional term beginning September 24th, 2022 and ending September 23rd, 2025. The city is now accepting applications for the following vacancies, and interested residents may apply at our website under the Department of City Clerk, Municipal Boards and Committees. And we encourage people to do so, as this is a wonderful opportunity to serve your community. Affordable Housing is looking for an advisory committee member, someone who is an employer within the jurisdiction. The Code Enforcement Board are looking for 2 alternate members, and they must be city residents. Community Redevelopment Area Advisory Board, looking for 1 member that owns property or a business or works in the Dixieland CRA district. The Utility Committee is looking for 1 non-resident to represent the residential rate class who lives outside the city limits. The committee was adjourned at 8:14 a.m.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
In a second, okay. So discussion by commissioners, questions? Any by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. That brings us to the Real Estate and Transportation Committee report, and that will be given by Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. The Real Estate and Transportation Committee was met at the City Commission Conference Room. Mike Music, Chair, was absent. Commissioner Chad McLeod, Bill Reed, members were present. Bill Muntz, Commissioner Sarah McCauley, present, along with staff and media. I called the meeting together at 8:15 a.m. The proposed meeting was discussed the proposed lease renewal for Crystal Roll Dance. On May 15, 2017, Lakeland Community Real Development Agency, CRA, entered into a lease agreement for the CRA-owned property at 801 North Massachusetts Avenue with Crystal's World of Dance. The lease provided for an initial 5-year term with no rent being due the first 6 months, and the increments increased to $300 per month, year 1, $500 per month, year 2 and 3, $750 per month, years 4 and 5. The lease provided for a 5-year renewal term to be granted with a 120-day notice. However, the renewal term provision was not specified in the rent amount and deferred to later negotiations. The proposed lease renewal provided for a 3-year term at $750 per month for the first year, subsequent to annual 5% escalations beginning the following year, each subsequent year thereafter. Additionally, the proposed lease renewal clarified the process of passing through maintenance and repair costs, which have been performed by the city's facility division and invoiced to the leasee according to the appropriate fee schedule. The CRA board considered the proposed lease renewal on July 7th, 2022, and unanimously recommended the approval. The committee discussed the agreement and the pass-through of the maintenance costs, which had not fully been collected in the previous lease. Commissioner Cloud moved to approve the lease. Commissioner Bill Reed seconded, and the motion carried unanimously. Our meeting adjourned at 8:19 a.m.
A motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. Discussion by commissioners?
I'd just like to,
Yes.
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Reed for taking over. I was at the FMEA with 2 of the other commissioners, so I appreciate you running that meeting and doing that today as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions by the audience or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Also unanimously passes. That brings us to the consent agenda, which is the minutes of the meeting as well as item 6C1, which is a hearing waiver, so that we don't have to wait for that meeting to be after 5:01. Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
And a second, and discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. We cease to meet as a commission at this point, begin as an equalization board, and we will hear as an equalization hearing on demolitions of building from our city attorney, item 2A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city charter requires that the city commission convene as an equalization board prior to imposing a special assessment lien against private property. So the purpose of today's meeting is to hear from anybody that might have received a letter relating to the imposition of a lien against their property, and this is your opportunity, if you did receive such a letter, to ask any questions that you may have about that of the city commission or express your objections to that. The only property on the proposed equalization roll this morning is 2121 Blue Highlands Drive. So if you are a representative of that property, this is your opportunity to address the city commission.
Is anyone in the room representing that property? All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
And a second?
Second.
And all those in favor, oh wait, and discussion by commissioners, questions?
I'm just wondering, it's pretty bad, I guess, for demolition of the building, correct? It's just for demolition?
Just for demolition.
The property that had a fire, a large structure, multiple investigations relating to it. So that's why it is such a high assessment
And there's no
charge.
insurance on it of any sort, too?
There are some disputes relating to insurance, yes.
Thank you.
Any questions by the audience or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. And we will cease to meet as an equalization board and meet as a commission. And that brings us back to public hearings, item 3A1.
We have one ordinance for second reading this morning in consideration of adoption. That is proposed ordinance number 22-030, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, approving a conditional use to recognize an existing church and child daycare facility and allow for the construction of a 2-story, 3,662 square foot addition on property located at 210 Popple or Papel Drive, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion by commissioners or questions. Any by the audience? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Unanimously passes.
The next item is a public hearing that is required by state law relating to the upcoming fiscal year plan to expend monies that the city will receive for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership programs. We are required to hold 2 public hearings on this, and I'll turn the floor over to Michael Smith, our Director of the Housing Division.
Welcome, Mike.
Good morning. As we're trying to load this, Kevin, can you assist with the slide? I just have a couple of slides in case there's any questions on the
Great.
amount of money. Okay. So I'll go ahead and get started while she's loading that up. This is the second hearing for the Community Development Block CDBG and Home Investment Partnership Program. It's our one-year action plan and projected use of funds for the program year 2022-2023. At the June 20th Commission meeting, presented a summary of our current program year and the proposed use of funds for the 2022-2023 program year. The action plan has been posted to the city website and also noticed in the ledger. We have a 30-day review period. And what we're asking for today is for any public comment, any comments from the commission, and then we're going to be looking for approval of the action plan and proposed use of funds, and we will then present that to HUD before August 15th, and I will open up to any questions that anybody has.
Right. Are there any questions at all? Any by the audience at all? Okay, we need a motion on this.
Move for approval.
Second.
And a second. And finalized discussion by commissioners. And again by the audience. Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you for your preparation in that, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Brings us to Community Redevelopment Agency, and we will meet as that agency as a commission. And so that is item 4A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a proposed tax increment financing agreement with Lakewire Owner LLC for improvements to property. It's actually the old Florida tile site, as well as the city's approximately 2.5 acre parcel just to the north of the old Florida tile site. Lakewire Owner LLC is an affiliate of Carter Acquisitions, which is proposing to purchase this property and develop a mixed-use development on the property of 4 4-story buildings with approximately 300 apartment units as well as 15,000 square feet of retail space. That's phase 1. There will be a phase 2 as well. They are requesting a tax increment financing agreement from the CRA. Our typical tax increment financing agreement is for a term of 5 years with a reimbursement of 50% per year for that 5-year period. They are expending development costs of approximately $72 million on this property and are requesting a modified TIF agreement with the CRA. They are requesting, they had originally requested of the CRA a 10-year agreement with a 75% reimbursement of tax increment for all 10 years of that agreement. The CRA Advisory Board considered that request and is recommending instead to the City Commission that the TIF agreement be a 10-year agreement. The first 5 years would be reimbursed at 75%, and the second 5 years would be reimbursed at 50%. There are different dollar amounts associated with these different TIF agreements. So under the original request by Lakewire Owner LLC, over the 10-year period, they would be projected to receive a rebate of $4,638,000. That compares to the standard 5-year TIF agreement that the CRA typically grants, which would be $1,546,150. Under the CRA's proposed hybrid approach, the proposed TIF reimbursement over that 10-year period would be $3,865,376. Staff is recommending the CRA Advisory Board's hybrid approach to the TIF agreement.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the hybrid?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, and discussion by commissioners on that. Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Yeah.
What you
I just think 10 years seems excessive. I don't want to get into where we get we're getting more requests for this was initially for 15 years. We're going to be seeing more for 10 and stuff. The ones that we granted for excessive, I think, have had some housing that goes back in reference to affordable housing. And I think these are full price, and so they're good. I'd like to have some more discussion from my colleagues before I make a decision.
Right. Commissioner Walker.
Yes, I want to make sure I did hear what Commissioner Reed was saying, and that is because of what the proposed plan is for this particular property, you look at maybe getting more affordable housing, and the actual makeup of this is what you're saying? Is that what you're asking?
Well, there's no affordable housing component within this request. This is full market price for all 300 units, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And I think part of what you're saying is that there's not an exchange for some other compromise.
Yes.
Which is,
Yes.
Okay. Other comments on that? Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Reed. I watched the agenda study just to make sure I was, hearing from my colleagues with regard to both this and the one under miscellaneous reports that'll come up. So I thought it was, powerful to note that, without the remediation efforts with all the asbestos and petroleum and all of the things that for 5 years and $1 million plus the $110 million investment in the park, which is kind of the point to developing this property, to have that endowment fund in perpetuity for maintenance. 75% of that kind of a development and investment is certainly more than $0 for no investment and no development, which is what we've had for decades. So, I feel like, this is certainly, a wonderful investment into our community and a huge opportunity. And I'm really grateful that we've had both, this development with private company, and also the philanthropic endeavor and investments of citizens in our city, county, and state to just really have the foresight to develop this property as a mechanism wherewith they can also maintain the park, and that doesn't come back as a burden. We just had Parks and Recreation, proclamation today, and parks are expensive. And the parks that we enjoy in Lakeland are not by city tax dollars alone. I mean, we know that it's come because of a very generous community and philanthropic efforts that are just heroic. I mean, and very unusual, not many places have the kind of philanthropic investments that we have in our Parks and Rec, all of our parks. The McGee Park recently we opened with that spirit, that same spirit. So I just, sometimes you do feel like you need a little explanation when you are giving this tax increment financing at a 10 years instead of 5 and 75% for 5 years instead of the typical 50%. But when you think about the Herculean task of remediating that property for the last 5 years, and the mounting construction costs and supply chain that we all know is happening with, and still building that park and opening this fall, I'm just really excited and proud of what that's going to be, and happy to be able to be a partner through this CRA.
Commissioner McCarley.
I think one of the things I took away from the agenda study on Friday, and just something in knowing how this process has been moving forward, is we're looking at engaging an area that has been desolate and empty and an eyesore for years. And just to Commissioner Madden's point of the remediation that went on that, we did not do as a municipality. Another group came in and put private dollars behind to clean that up. And one of the things that we talk about continually here in all of the quadrants across our city is caring for and connecting people to one another. And so this project has already put a connection, a sidewalk connection that we didn't have to pay for as a municipality, that private dollars paid for, and that we can connect that downtown west, as Commissioner Walker calls it, because I don't want to say it wrong, connecting that to the greater, downtown area of Lakeland and to the different neighborhoods that we have in that area that we could really see some benefit to this. So for me, I'm a strong supporter of this. I think they came to an agreement at CRA. Everybody gave a little bit to get to this TIF agreement. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen. And this is one of those ripple effects from the commitment from the park of Bonnet Springs into the greater community that we're going to see, that we're going to be really happy we did this in 25 years down the road and said that was a great decision. We're really excited to be a part of a commission that supported that.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues for those comments. And while I would agree, what's happening and what has happened on this particular property, growing up in this community, right, almost adjacent to the property, having family lived in what we call that particular area of Robinson Quarters, now called Crescent Heights, I would certainly say it has been a blessing, to make sure that we see what has come out of the ground, what left there desolate for so many years. Now, I will applaud all the efforts that have been done and thank God for what has been done. But my only concern I have is as we move forward. Of course, and this has nothing to do with the property that's there that we're talking about right now, but certainly I want to keep our eyes and our fingers on the pulse of the adjacent situation. And I think it's important because I've had conversations with those involved with this particular organization, as I would say, but we got to make sure we do the right thing for what's just north. And I want to go on blast. We got to make sure it's done right to take care of the situation in another downtrodden area in some respect. And when you have homeowners, homesteaders there, and they're concerned. So again, while I appreciate what we're doing here, and thank God we have another added, I think, very nice piece that accommodate what the park is doing and all, but just across the street almost, you're going to have a situation that we have to deal with that we got to make sure it's done right. I just want to make sure we knew that.
To keep our eye on future development north of it, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Music.
Yeah, and I would like to second that for sure. But really, what we're talking about, what I'm a little concerned about, which maybe Commissioner Reed spoke a little bit about, is being careful to set a precedent as it's going to continue to increase. I think we would all agree, if you've driven down this road over the last 25 years, since the building has been gone with Florida Tile, has been a blight. There's been what's going to happen by the redevelopment, I think, is just going to be a catalyst for those areas, but we just have to be careful because we are throwing a tremendous amount of money at a good project, but it's going to be very easy for people to come back to us in the future and say, well, you did this, why are they getting preferential treatment? And that's my only concern, but I will be voting for it, but that's just my one concern that I have for that.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Don't get me wrong, I am not against the project, and I think they're going to do a tremendous job of what I've seen. I just don't want to set a precedence, and I would like to see if any way, I'm not opposed to the 75% for the first 5 years by any means. It'd be nice to get some money back into our coffers a little bit better than 50% the second 5 years. But, if it's the will of the commission, it gets to be seen. So we'll see how the vote goes.
Well, and I want you to know from my perspective, I agree with you, and I'm very concerned when we do extended TIF arrangements like this. We would have our standard TIF would have been $1.5 million in this, 50% for 5 years. And I appreciate the CRA's discussion on this to try and find some middle ground. Now, when we talk about standard, and even on the affordable housing side, and even on some of the exchanges for parking that we have done in some TIF allocations, the difference here is that there's $72 million that's going to be spent in a place that has just sat as an extension of downtown that never has been. And when it gets done, we'll make that downtown connection an automatic, because then we fill in between it. I remember Charleston Mayor O'Reilly saying always, build from the corners. When we think of our downtowns, from Ingram to Bonnet Springs Park, because that's really our downtown swath, this is the corner that locks that together. And so making the bump from $1.5 million to $3.8 million as an increment to support that kind of investment, to me, seems wise, but I am highly cautioning the CRA on extended 10-year agreements, because the purpose of TIF is not that we use taxpayers' money to fund something, but that we use the incremental financing that comes from the growth and value of those communities as we go along, and if we don't take that money back in, we can't reinvest it. This is a great place to make that kind of a compromise for this kind of a benefit. Any other comments by commissioners?
Well said.
Any comments or questions by the public? Okay, this is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Great job. Thank you very, very much. We are meeting again as a commission. The Community Redevelopment Agency is actually, the commission approves all those things. So as a tight little thing, we can be a separate board when we meet at that level. But now our city manager has a report on 5A.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, Commissioners. I only have one item for presentation this morning, and this is regarding an agreement for transfer of public roads at Ralston Road. The agreement for transfer of the public roads between Polk County and Lakeland will transfer 850 feet of Ralston Road to the city for operations and maintenance. There is a the largest portion of this segment includes improvements such as standard lane widths, turn lanes, and sidewalks. There's a smaller section that consists of a transition between the improved and unimproved roadway sections. Bringing the subject area of Ralston Road into city operations and maintenance has several benefits. Probably most notably is that the city would then administer the city's permitting process and would review and approve any and all driveway modifications moving forward. It also provides for connectivity within the corporate city limits of Lakeland, and certainly provides consistency of maintenance and operations on that segment of roadway. So it's recommended that the City Commission approve this transfer of the public roads agreement and authorize the appropriate staff to execute it on behalf of the city.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A second? Okay. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion or questions by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. That brings us City Attorney A1 for ordinance's first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one ordinance for first reading. This will be read by title only this morning and will come back for a public hearing and consideration of adoption on August 1st. That is proposed ordinance number 22-029, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, approving a conditional use to allow for off-street parking as a principal use on property located at 411 East Orange Street, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date. Again, that will come back for a public hearing on August 1st. I have one resolution for consideration of adoption this morning. That is proposed resolution number 22-029, a resolution for the assessment of a lien against properties for expenses incurred in the removal of dilapidated and hazardous buildings, making findings, providing an effective date.
Move approval.
And second?
Second.
We just went to B1. All right, and so those, discussion by commissioners? Any discussion by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Excuse me, I'm roll calling, and then instead it's Commissioner Reed.
Pardon me?
Yeah, just say it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. You said yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right. So, same result, unanimously passes. My apologies. And that brings us to C2.
The C2 is a proposed 8th amendment to the purchase and sale agreement between the City of Lakeland and the Lakewire Development Company, LLC. You may recall that the city entered into this agreement with Lakewire Development back in 2018. Lakewire Development is an entity that was created closely affiliated with Bonnet Springs Park to assemble both the old Florida Tile site and the city parcel to the north, market that property, and hopefully sell that and then take the purchase proceeds from that sale to create an endowment to fund maintenance costs of Bonnet Springs Park. Under the 2018 agreement, the purchase price was established at $424,601 with a $25,000 deposit placed into escrow. That agreement also, though, contemplated a potential request to reduce that purchase price when we got closer to closing. The agreement provided that the purchase price may be reduced by seller and seller's sole discretion at or prior to closing upon seller's reviewing consideration of any development plans presented to seller by purchaser at or prior to closing. We're looking at hopefully a closing coming up in sometime in mid-August on this property. And the request has now been made by Bonnet Springs Park on behalf of Lakewire Development Company, LLC, to reduce the purchase price to the amount of $25,000, which is the amount that was placed into escrow originally back in 2018. And so the attached Eighth Amendment to the Purchase and Sale Agreement has been prepared to reduce that purchase price pending discussion by the City Commission.
Was there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
And a second. All right, discussion by commissioners. Who would like to kick this off? Commissioner Madden.
Thank you. So again, watching this on the agenda study, I appreciate the discussion at large. I also really appreciated what Commissioner Reed said about having documentation for the $399,600 to be a City of Lakeland gift to the endowment fund. So that was one of the things as I was reading through the notes prior to today. There's certainly my same sentiments that I mentioned earlier about the TIF are true on this as well. But I do know that things can get lost in the wash. And, when people ask, what was the City of Lakeland's contribution to the park? We heard from the agenda study that it was lighting, on the road. And, I think, we put a lot of time into getting the grant at the state level, to be able to clean up the water. And so I just think for, history's sake and just to show that we have skin in the game, so to speak, that if there was a way, and it sounded like Josh or someone from the meeting in the agenda study was hopeful to make that available today, that some kind of documentation that $399,600 would actually go as a gift into the Carol Burnett Endowment Fund. Am I correct with that?
Yes, we got a letter to that regard as well. Right. Yeah, and I think that probably, to your point, the wonderful thing about that means that the city takes the portion it would forgive if we made this decision here and becomes a multiplier for the future in terms of how it helps to provide for the operations funds of the park. So it's not only that we're just buying something, we're buying something that multiplies over time. Commissioner Music.
Yeah, I would just like to agree with that, and I appreciated Commissioner Reed's comments on that for sure. But when you consider and we take the dollar amount that has been invested privately and through the state funds, the fact that we get to kind of put our name onto this with such a little piece of contribution, I think is certainly a good asset. But I think that having it set legally is wise, and I was appreciative of those comments. But like the rest of us, excited to see this continue to develop.
Commissioner Walker.
Oh, you vote?
I saw you say you had your finger just.
You saw my face. Okay. Well, I would just say, I think it's important that what has been done and what we would have as another jewel in our city. It complements everything else that we have done to make sure that our citizens can enjoy. And of course, being a private park, as we know, but open to the public for use is a good thing, I think, because our parks are just, well thought of, well planned out, and people come from all over to enjoy. But I think this particular one, of course, having to be the centerpiece almost in our core of our city, certainly would bring more people and have more public use. And I think that's a good thing for us to know that Lakeland hopefully will be there somewhere legally. They said we've done something and be of support to what's going on.
Commissioner Music.
Yeah, just a good comment. It made me remember the video, watching the video, because I've not been out to the site yet. But there are very few opportunities that we have as a commission to vote on something like, the agreement that we just talked about, the odds are none of us are going to take part in that, right? We're not going to live on that complex run through but the entire area, city, state, local, nationwide, has access to this. So it's one of the few things that we're able to approve potentially that will affect everybody. It's not so often it's a small development or it's an out-of-state group that's coming in, but this is a homegrown project that we can all have pride in and utilize.
Commissioner Walker.
Let me add to, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important that people do not forget, history. We like to sometimes just, do away with, tear down, get rid of, but you got to make sure, people, that we don't make the mistake of having to do something again that history's already, shared with us and told us about. So I certainly could appreciate, what has come about, because that particular adjacent, neighbor that we call Crescent Heights, when I was growing up, it was called Robinson Quarters. Has also, been able to, capitalize on what has happened by this particular park investment there in that property. So that's a good thing, I believe, but certainly want to appreciate what has all been done and the history behind what was there as to what has transpired to be and will come out of the ground. Let's not forget that. I think it's important that we should not forget that. And thankfully, I think the neighbors, as I hear them talk and have shared with them and talked with them, appreciate certainly what has happened to support their situation there.
I think of when you talk about history, I was just sitting here reflecting because I see Kathleen Munson sitting out here, and it reminded me of when we started Lakeland Vision and when we first met and how excited we were to start to create some plans more intentionally about what we were going to do and become as a city. And you think that's only about 25 years ago, maybe a little less. And to consider this opportunity and the beautification of this place and recognize it's a free park that regionally people are going to come to and really beyond, as you have mentioned, and to recognize how transformational it is. What a brilliant opportunity for us as a city to be able to help support something that has been orchestrated and beneficially provided so well. Commissioner McCarley.
And just to add to that, I think what the public should understand is this has been a collaborative effort from the get-go, not only through the city's partnership with the park, but this park started with volunteers and a commitment of the founders to not only enhance Lakeland, but to take something that was useless, frankly, and a piece of land, a swath of land that was just, again, needed to be remediated and needed to be viewed at with a vision that they brought forward, and with Carol and David Bunch and Bill Tinsley and that group and Barney, of bringing that forward and saying, there is a gem here. There's 160 acres in the middle of town that no one has touched since the railroad left, and it has all this damage, and that they saw something that was so much more beautiful and so much more versatile and also integrated, where they went to the community members in Crescent Heights and Robinson Quarters and talked to the neighbors first and talked to the people who were living on that land and brought them into the fold. So I think collaboratively, this is an exciting opportunity that the rest of the world, frankly, can look at Lakeland and say, oh my goodness, wow. I mean, this is just an incredible opportunity for us to continue to work together, to say the city does support this. There were some agendas in the beginning of these discussions and some push and pull between the city and the founders of, how is this gonna look and how is this gonna work, and are you gonna come to us in the future and say you want the city to pay for this? And that's not at all what's going to happen, and it's not what's happened to date. $120 million plus has been contributed by local Lakeland individuals and companies, and there is so much skin in the game from our taxpayers already, and the excitement of this park, that I think that, and it's much more than a park. We keep calling it a park, but it's so much more than a park. It's going to be an education center. It's going to be a wellness center. It's going to provide all these opportunities for our people to ride their bikes and to hike and to connect to other pieces of the city that they don't necessarily have the opportunity to do. And it's also brought us together in a transdisciplinary way between our transit system, our city municipality, and our infrastructure infrastructure of sidewalks as well as the different neighborhoods. And what a better place to celebrate. And if we can, obviously I'm passionate about this, but if we can, say as the city of Lakeland that we were on board and we contributed in the beginning, I mean, how exciting for future generations.
Commissioner Madden.
So I know I already spoke once, but I was looking over at my colleague, Commissioner Walker, who has taught me so much about just growing up in the northwest quadrant of Lakeland and moving here in 1985 and not from the Midwest and not experiencing segregation firsthand and knowing your story of not being able to swim in our swimming pool, a city pool. I heard a similar story from Barney Barnett, and who is one of the big investors in this park, who was really worried on the day that the pool opened, was desegregated, and his friends from the basketball team. And some of his friends were coming from one side of the town and he was coming from another, and how was that gonna go? And he was hopeful that it was gonna be great, because those were his teammates and friends. And I know the intentionality of investing in this area. And, to think that, I know you have concerns, like we would all have concerns about, the bad side effects of gentrification. And I know you do have to be careful, as you improve areas that, that doesn't squeeze people out who have lived there historically. But I feel like the intentionality and the heart of this community and this effort from everyone who's contributed is to be hopeful that with the move of the monument to Veterans Park and the investment into the Northwest Quadrant and in our master planning of trying to create a west-east divide, and with our efforts through Lift Lakeland and through the George Floyd crisis, that I'm hopeful that our community is setting an example that things can be different, and that 20 years from now we don't have to look like Chattanooga and Greenville and some other cities that we want to emulate to say, gosh, we wish we wouldn't have left people behind, or that we don't have another story of getting rid of a Moorhead and not being able to tell that story with as much pride as we would hope. And so I'm really grateful for this conversation, for the folks here who represent the park. Sometimes I don't think anyone watches these meetings, but I know that I have benefited from being on this city commission with Commissioner Walker and the team at Bonnet Springs Park, the investment that you're making, the children and grandchildren, and the legacy that those investments are making are just really unfathomable. Really, it's awe-inspiring. And I know my words do it so little justice, but I'm just so proud of our community and for the citizens to not see this city as a shining city on a hill. With our heart is to bridge that divide. It is to maybe undo some wrongs that we've done in the past and to make sure everyone in Lakeland has the best and brightest possible quality of life. So I'm excited.
Punctuated with your heartfelt emotion. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I think Sarah did a tremendous job on giving us a rendition of what the park is going to be. Of course, I think also this is not even going to be one of the best facilities in the state of Florida, but probably in the nation. However, I am being the conservative vote from this is citizens' tax dollars. We have ad valorem taxes that are probably going to increase. We have an abundance of expenses we're going to need to incur. And again, this was our 2.5 acre, 2.6 acres was the cornerstone. That's the intersection. That particular intersection allowed them to come forward and get the big dollars that they did. They are going to sell that piece for over $1.1 million that we're selling to them for $425,000. We gave them an open-end option for as long as they wanted for $25,000 to get the gain that they could possibly get. And if they didn't want to sell it today, they could probably get more in the future. But I think it makes the piece a whole. So from that standpoint, I commend them, and I think David and them have done a absolute fantastic job on bringing this whole component together, which I never would have thought had been possible. And I can't stand up and clap my hands enough for you and the group. However, there again, however, being the conservative voice, I'll vote no, but I think it's going to pass, and I'm glad it's going to pass. But I think for the overall citizens, with the things that are going to come, we are in a recession. Gas has come down about 50 cents a gallon. Everybody's excited now. But I think we're in for tougher times, and I hope that we can transpire through them. But invariably, I think we'll have to tighten our belts down the road, and that's just kind of the way it is. But that's the way I feel about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner Reed. Any other comments by commissioners? Any other comments by the audience? Any comments or questions whatsoever? Okay, this is not a roll call vote. This is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
It passes 5-1. And I think that passage should reflect to you, David, the culmination of a great vision, a relentless heart on your part to never quit, to keep dreaming, to see that could become something beyond our wildest comprehension, and we give you a hearty applause and the entire Bonnet Springs team. Thank you very much for that. Yes.
If I may, I did not want to interrupt those great and wonderful comments, but I just do want to also point out as a showing of the city's support of Bonnet Springs Park and the tremendous opportunity that brings to an area where it was needed. In addition to the things that were discussed here today, the tax increment financing, the contribution of the land, the grant that was referenced, but there's also been about $330,000 of infrastructure modification and related to electrical components and the lighting at that location that the city has contributed as well. And so we're approaching about $5 million in support, which is, I think, again, a great sign of the city's support for what has been accomplished there by the board and the contributors from the community.
Great. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate those comments. All right. That takes us, there are no comments from the finance directors. That takes us to utility, and we are at item 8C1.
Good morning, Ramona Siriani for the City Attorney's Office. The first item that we have under utility is an agreement with Chattanooga Boiler and Tank Company. This is for the purchase of a heat recovery tank for a Macintosh reciprocating engine project or RICE project. As you know, we've purchased these engines from MAN, and these engines are required to maintain a constant temperature in order to do that, to allow for quick start and loading to meet requirements of the system as well as solar loads. And in order to maintain that temperature, this heat recovery tank takes the waste heat from those engines and then stores that heat into large 200,000 gallon tanks of water that maintain a constant temperature. And then, so when those engines are shut down, that hot water is then pulled from those tanks and then used to keep the engines warm. The purchasing department issued a bid in April. We received 2 bid responses. Chattanooga Boiler and Tank Company was the lowest, most responsible bidder at a bid price of $653,965. Upon approval by the commission, they will commence work on the design, manufacturing of the field fabricated tank, and they will also be on site for installation for that, which has an anticipated completion date of March 2023. And in evaluating the bids, our consulting engineer on the project, Sargent and Lundy, actually proposed a $3,100 cost savings to the initial bid. So the total cost of the adjusted cost of the work is actually less than the initial bid, and it is at $650,865. That's included in Lakeland Electric's budget for the RICE project, which was funded through issuance of a bond. And we would ask for your favorable approval.
Move for approval.
Is motion to approve in a second? Second by Commissioner Madden. Discussion by commissioners? Discussion or questions by the audience? Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Item 2.
The second item we have is an agreement with Florida Gas Transmission Company. This is for pipeline capacity to transport natural gas and for the purchase of 1,000 MMBTUs of FGT capacity. Due to nationwide supply chain issues, there is a less daily capacity available for purchase. So, and based on the needs of Lakeland Electric, our fuels manager and our city staff has negotiated an agreement with FGT to purchase this additional 1,000 MMBTUs of available capacity. Pursuant to the agreement, the term would be effective August 1st from your approval to November 30th, 2033, which is approximately an 11-year term. The annual cost of the FGT capacity for the 1,000 MMBTUs of natural gas is $264,625 a year, for a total cost of $2,999,325 during the term of that agreement. What's important to note about these capacity agreements is, while this is a set term, we do have the ability to sell that capacity and also sell it at a higher rate. So we're never going to if we feel like we don't need that capacity, we have the ability to provide it to another shipper. That will mitigate our costs and liability if we find that we don't need that. And this would be funded through Lakeland Electric's fuel budget as well. So we would ask for approval of the 1,000 MMBTUs of FGT capacity, as well as authorization to let our fuels manager go ahead and sign the contract on behalf of the city.
Motion approved by Commissioner McCarley, and a second.
Second.
Second. Discussion by commissioners? Questions? I have one, which is, do we always have the capacity to sell? Is there always a buyer on the other side of that?
I think we can be pretty assured that there will be a purchaser available. And in the grand scheme, I think that our fuels manager will tell you too that the 1,000 MMBTUs is actually a small component.
It's just that you want to take all of these, you can, right?
Every day, what we do is, right now, all utilities, nobody has enough capacity to run all their units 24/7, okay? And so we're always looking around. If our units are in outage, we might sell some of our capacities to another utility, vice versa. It's every day there's a market, or there's marketers asking for my capacity. So right now we've been paying high prices because there's a limited supply. So I don't see this being a problem. In fact, I think it's going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be a moneymaker, but I think it's going to be kind of the opposite.
Okay, good.
He who has capacity will
profit. Okay.
Because that's what's been happening to us. Because what I've always tried to do is do what they call, after the market capacity, go after somebody else's, because you can get it at a lesser rate. But now the tables have turned because there's none available, supply and demand.
And what would our consumption be daily, typically, in total gas consumption?
It depends. We've been getting into the 80s right now. We're about 65 for today, but it just depends.
So this would be 1/65th of that, right?
Well, yes, I guess. And like I said, 1,000 isn't very much. But what's so vital to understand why I want this so bad is one day, if I exceed our threshold for gas, this would, one day alert day's penalty would cost this much, okay? And we've been very tight with the pool. So, it's very expensive if you have a penalty if you don't have capacity.
Any other questions? Commissioner Madden?
Thank you. I know you did speak to this on the video, but I was wishing I was on the video, could ask my question on Friday. So this buys your potential capacity, but it doesn't fix the cost at what you're paying for the gas. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. This is just the ability to transport the gas to McIntosh or Larson. That's all it does. Then we have to buy the gas that goes along with it.
Gas prices are so high right now, you'd hate to hedge anything to 2033 at a particular cost. So it's just the ability to have this capacity, whatever the market cost is at the time.
It's fuel assurance that, having capacity makes sure that we can buy gas and deliver it there. If you don't have the capacity, that's what I was worried about, because we were coming so tight, I had to ask the plant to be on standby to go to oil, because it's been that tight with this heat. This 1,000, I can breathe.
Any other questions? Any questions by the audience or comments at all? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Bringing us to item 3. We'll switch to this one.
The third item that we have is an agreement with ABB. This is for the purchase of low voltage switchgear for the Rice project. This switchgear will be used to bring power auxiliary equipment into the plant, as well as control the 6 Rice engines that are being procured from MAN. The purchasing department issued a bid back in April. We received 3 responses to that bid, and ABB Inc. was the lowest, most responsible bidder, which came in at a bid of $527,360. Upon approval by the commission, work will commence on the design and manufacturing of the switchgear, which is scheduled to arrive and be completed in May of 2023. Upon review of some of the bid requirements with our consulting engineer, Sargent and Lundy, they determined to increase the scope of work with some technical modifications. So that did add approximately $60,800 to the base bid price, and so that including $13,500 for freight costs. So the total adjusted cost of the work is $601,660. That again is included in the commission's approval of the Rice project budget, as well as which was funded through issuance of a bond that was previously approved by the commission.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion approved in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Also unanimously passes. Item 4.
Last item we have is an agreement with Young & Franklin. This is for a fuel control valve replacement for Larston Unit 8. This is the valve that controls and regulates the fuel supply to the combustion turbine at Larston Unit 8. The existing valve is reached its end of life. It's approximately 30 years old, and so it is now in need of a replacement. The work would be completed during the extended outage, which will take place between October and December of this year. The city's purchasing department did approve this as a sole source purchase because Young & Franklin is the original equipment manufacturer for the valve. The total cost for the work is $131,857. It is included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion approved in a second. Discussion by commissioners. It's important to just mention perhaps that this is a rebuilt valve, which is just another way to save a little money. And so I appreciate the fact that that's got court charge and exchanged in the process of doing that and still representing the service and warranty. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. That brings us to the audience portion of the meeting, so if there's any general comments, and limited to 5 minutes, anyone can come up front and share their thoughts. Seeing none, that brings us to the mayor and members of the city commission, and Commissioner Walker would like to begin.
Someone coming, I think.
Or are you wanting to speak, ma'am? Okay, I'm sorry. We will postpone our comments for yours.
I am so sorry. I wasn't prepared to come.
Can you come just a little closer to the mics then, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
Hey, I am so sorry. I wasn't prepared to come to any meetings. I'm down here because I wanted to set up an appointment to speak with the mayor due to my son. His name is Barkel Scott. My son was arrested on May 18th of 2021 for a drug charge. He's mentally disabled. I don't even know how he got any drugs, but The reason that I came down here is because his public defender, which is Ms. Terry Stewart, it's been like a back and forth thing. I spoke with her on several occasions. Until now, she's ignored me, as well as Mr. Guy and Mr. Frank, and I left a message for Mr. Demings, which never ever returned my call, so I'm not for sure if he got the message or not. I've been down here on this matter several times to set up an appointment to see like basically what I can do. Ms. Terry Stewart, again, who is the public defender, she's trying to place my son in a group home. She's trying to basically snatch my son out of my care, and I don't know what give her grounds to even try to get custody of my son. She have even went as far as like going to get my son's birth certificate as well as his social security card, in which there is no statute that gives her the right to do these things. Every time my son have a court date, I go to court with my son. The judge refused to let me talk. Every time I visit my son, it has to be virtually. So I see my son through a computer, which he's not focused. He's mentally disabled. Even for this charge that they're charging him with, he's been found non-competent. So he cannot stand trial. He's been found non-competent several times. When we first moved here in 2015, 2017, my son got arrested for trespassing. They did an evaluation with Dr. Lavelle's office at that time, and the public defender, the state attorney, all of them, they found that my son was non-incompetent. He wasn't competent. So they told me anytime my son get arrested to let them know, because he wasn't supposed to be in jail. He wasn't supposed to be doing any kind of jail time. So again, when I see my son, it's virtually, I have to see him through a screen. My son is hearing voices now. No one is giving him counseling in there. I still have to tell my son not to pick up this stick off the floor. Get this out of your mouth. I still have to remind him to take a shower. And it's like I'm being ignored no matter who I talk to. They're like, we don't know what we can do. Call the police office. I talk with the chief assistant, which is Mr. Taylor. He tells me to call the state attorney, Mr. I called his office, spoke with his assistants. She haven't returned my call. I called again. They connected me with someone. I cannot think of his name right now. I have it written down. But basically, all he told me is that Mr. Terry Stewart is trying to put your son in a home. Why won't you allow him to put your son in a home? I told him my son has a loving home. My son has a family that care about him. I could care less how many times my son was arrested for trespassing. I need my son home. He's mentally disabled. Again, he needs counseling. He needs someone that he can even talk to, like while he's in there. And again, he's been there for over a year. They arrested him for having synthetic weed. He served that maximum time. Right now it's kidnapping. And again, I want my son out of that place. And these days, when you are incarcerated and you have a mental issue, you're punished for that mental issue that you have. You're punished from being mental. If my son has an episode, if he has a breakout, they're not going to counsel him. They're going to place him in an empty room, in a cold room. They're going to put this green jumper over him and have him to lay on the cold floor. So people with mental issues, they're not being counseled. They're not being helped. They're being thrown away like trash. And jail is no place for my son. So I came down here to ask if there is anything that you guys could do as far as like getting my son released from out of Polk County Jail, waiting false proof. And I cannot go drop down there and visit him because, again, they have their visitation set up virtually. And then when I see him again, he's talking to himself. He's not focused. I have to call my son's name several times. When I do get his attention, he dozes off into whatever voices he's hearing in his head. So I need help. I feel like my son has been snatched out of me. No woman is going to sit around and allow this to happen to their child. I don't think a man would either. My son, from birth to 18 months, he was hospitalized 23 times carrying my son. I knew that there was something that was going on with him. Even in the womb, I knew that there was something going on with my child. So you tell me what woman in labor with birthing pains is going to be quiet and allow anything to happen to her child that will harm them?
So I appreciate very, very much your heart and your comments with respect to that despairing story with your son, and all of us as parents who have the pain of difficulties with children have not had to bear what you're bearing. this body, which is a governance body for the city, is not the legal arena in which you have to work. So we don't have jurisdiction and authority over the decisions that are made within that. You need to work within the parameters of the legal system. So you need to start with the sheriff's, and if he's in jail, with those people that are responsible. And where do you live, ma'am?
I live here in Lakeland, but I'm about to move out of state.
Okay.
So, and I have been down to I have spoke with the sheriff's, as I stated, Mr. Oh my goodness, Taylor, he's the chief assistant. The chief assistant, he referred me to the state attorney. I called the state attorney to set up an appointment with him, spoke with his assistants. His assistants were supposed to relay the message to him to give me a call or set up some kind of appointment that I can go down there and speak with him. That call never happened. So I ended up calling again, and I asked them to allow me to speak with Mr. Hass, which is the state attorney, to see if they can drop the charges. I was transferred to someone else that was not Mr. Hash. At the end of the conversation, he said that he'll have someone to call me back, and I was like, is that someone? Is Mr. Hash? He was like, no, it's someone that works with our department. I wanted to speak with Mr. Hash to see if they could drop the charges. So I spoke with the county. They can't do anything. You guys can't do anything. The sheriff's office telling me that they can't do anything. Who could do something? What statute that says that a public defender, which is a pretender, that can take your child and obtain his personal information?
I don't know. And so my recommendation is that you meet with someone, and I don't know if we have someone we might be able to recommend.
I mean, typically the public defender's office would represent your interest. If that's not happening, the only other suggestion I would have is Florida Rural Legal Services.
I called them. They don't handle criminal cases. I've been all around. I'm right now at the point where I have even called the governor's office. They have you on hold as if they're going to allow you to speak with someone. After waiting for a while, the phone just automatically hang up. Something has to be done about this. Somebody can make a call to the sheriff's office, the state attorney office, to tell them to release my son. He served the maximum penalty, and he's there over the maximum penalty, and he's being held on charges that he shouldn't even be held on because he's incompetent. The public defender does not have guardianship over my son. That's my son. I raised him. I have custody of my son. And though he's 27, he functioned as a mind of a 4-year-old. So he shouldn't have been in there in the first place, especially with already having an evaluation that found him incompetent and said that he wasn't supposed, if he were arrested, they were supposed to release my son.
So when we're not arguing with you at all with respect to your desires, what we have to do, though, is direct you to who can be the closest point of making a decision, and that's really the public defender's office.
And then if the public defender's office isn't doing what they're supposed to do, then what?
Yeah, I'm reluctant to give legal advice from the dais up here. I mean, maybe just wait until after the meeting. I'll talk to you briefly.
Can I have everyone name the commissioners? I know the mayor's name, but the commissioners, could I have everyone's name?
That's right there.
But if you guys could write the names down.
Right. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other audience comments? All right, that brings us to commissioner comments. Commissioner Walker, did you want to start?
Well, I was going to allow I call our electric utility rep to speak first, and okay. I almost thought, well, maybe even Commissioner Muser may want to share, because we all were in attendance, and it was his first time, where it's been several times for myself and Commissioner Madden about the FMEA conference, and what maybe not be shared, I can say some things.
Yeah, right. We'll start with Commissioner Madden then.
Okay, I'll do two quick things just before I do the FMEA. One is just, is the time frame for the recreational interest survey finished? I know that they were sending out a recreational, Kevin Cook's office, the communication was sent out like a recreational interest survey. Is that over?
No, it's running.
Okay, so I just need Parks and Rec proclamation today. I just want to make sure that people take advantage of that opportunity to let your voice be heard. Because sometimes I always joke that I couldn't get the clay courts passed, when people asked me that they want clay courts. But that's your opportunity to say what facilities and recreational amenities that you really appreciate, so that you make sure that that's noted, that you really love that, or if there's something that we could add, like pickleball, became so popular during COVID. Were you going to say something?
I just wanted, Commissioner, to your question, it is running through July 31st.
Okay.
So everyone still has the ability through the end of the month
Right.
to
So I just,
participate.
want to make sure in the summertime, sometimes things get lost, but that's really important that we hear from as many citizens as possible on that. Okay, that was number one. I also was curious, there was a couple things that happened last week when I was at FMEA. One was the Road Diet FDOT presentation. So I was curious if one of my colleagues, went or could give a little update on how they felt that went. And then just excited to see that a Publix employee was recognized, Glenn Chauncey, for saving someone out of a burning vehicle. And so I thought that was something noteworthy and wanted to give him, they had a little something to give as appreciation, but I was not able to go to that, and I wish I would have been able to just celebrate along with the fire department, a citizen who was, willing to be a hero and save the day there. So those were just some things I noticed that I missed being out of town last week that I wanted to bring up here. But last week, of course, I was out of town because of the Florida Municipal Electric Association's annual conference. So I was at the American Public Power Association a couple weeks prior to that, which is the umbrella trade industry for public power at the national level. FMEA is the trade industry organization for Florida public power utilities. Always is fun to go to that. We have different representation on the board, just like Commissioner Walker serves on Florida League of Cities. I remember when Joel Ivey, was the president of FMEA at the state level. And, we often will win awards, like we won awards when we went to FEMA reimbursement, and our team at Lakeland Electric was able to come up with kind of a GIS mapping and iPads and ways to document when they're fixing poles and taking pictures of our infrastructure, which expedited our FEMA reimbursement, because all of that stuff needs to be documented after a storm, and already having that documented and that technology, just kind of a innovative thing to be able to celebrate. So there are local things to celebrate. There are industry standards to appreciate and learn about. I know Cindy Clemens every year pays close attention, whether it's something coming down from the FCC regarding 5G, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, let's pay attention to this. They're going to want to put this on our poles. And so what are we going to do about pole attachment pricing and safety and weight loads for our hurricane hardening? You hear about other towns who might be undergrounding their wires and how they're funding that. Or you hear about Key West, who is still paying the interest on the loan, waiting on FEMA reimbursement. And it gives you kind of an opportunity to advocate alongside your peers, because maybe you're still paying the interest because we have great, yes, it could be you next, or you never know exactly where that hurricane is going to strike, or how supply chains. I told you that the Harvard supply chain expert at APPA was talking about how we could collectively work to make sure we have transformers, because it's impossible to find out where the next hurricane or storm or fire is going to strike. So I was really thrilled to have Commissioner Music go along. I always get excited. I get so excited that then I'm a little nervous about when he actually sits in the meetings, because maybe they're not as illustrative and exciting as I present them when I come back to share the information. They're a little more monotone, and you have to press in to focus and pay attention. But I'm hopeful
do some coaching?
that he says that if you look at the room and take the feedback from how the presentation's going, you might not think we were at the same meeting. But Nonetheless,
She's an enthusiast.
I think that just hearing about, how national policies with regard to EV infrastructure, coming and thinking, oh my gosh, Florida, how would we evacuate if everyone was on an EV mass adoption? And, we need the fast chargers. Let's not even waste time spending money on the things that take 4 to 6 to 8 hours charging. Think about gas lines in a hurricane trying to get out of the state. What in the world would we do if everyone had to charge? And then thinking about the load, if everyone had mass adoption and everyone was charging their vehicles and transportation overnight, do we have and we're a 75% gas state, do we have the capacity of gas? We just talked about needing capacity, but what if everyone overnight adopted EVs? So, and then, with tariffs in China, affecting the supply chain on solar panels, you're like, what? Now every solar farm is on hold because we have these supply chain issues. So there's just no way for us in Lakeland, Florida, to keep abreast of all those things. And so going to annual conference with FME or watching some of their webinars is just such a powerful tool for us to be aware, because this is something that provides that dividend to the city is as much as our property taxes. And making fiscally responsible decisions, and we have an awesome staff, but even that is a topic of conversation with wage wars and a labor shortage and retirement going in numbers. So to me, I don't know if it's the small business owner in me. I panic early on most everything because, I don't get to print money like the federal government. I just go out of business if I'm not paying attention to threats and doing a SWOT analysis every quarter. And so I kind of feel like that's what I do when I attend, is just sort of do a SWOT analysis, hear anything that is coming down the pipe, whether it's national policies or like the supply chain or FEMA or storm readiness. So I get excited, and I don't apologize for that, but I do hope that Commissioner Music did think it was a little bit exciting, maybe not as exciting as I find it, but I'm curious about your perspective.
Well, if that is a segue to me, we all express our passion and excitement a little bit differently. I will tell you, I was thankful and privileged to be able to go, and I will say that of all of the things that I learned and breakout sessions that were attended, the policy is the most interesting thing, because unless you're a wonk that digs into that all the time, there is a lot of things coming down that are pushed upon us that we don't get a vote on. We don't get a so the EVs was certainly interesting. The solar power information was certainly interesting, but it's I think it's just a testament to our city and how seriously we take these things when we make it available to its representatives and the people in our LE. So I was very thankful for that, and certainly look forward to having more of them. But to be able to go to seminars where someone's entire job is to understand that policy and they can disseminate it down to a digestible level is very good. I took a lot of notes, so I apologize that the passion didn't come out in my smiles and excitement, but I was thankful to be there with the two of you, and I think it was a benefit for me, which I hope turns a benefit from my seat here.
Well, I think your passion is awesome. I'm just saying, I get so excited about when you see the presentations. It's a little different environment, like when you're sitting in the classroom. It doesn't.
It's more engineering thing.
Right. It's not colorful,
But the people that spoke were the top in their field.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very well done. And then, lucky you get to go to the national one, I think, here in just a couple hours or so, right? So
You and I have to go to DC and take all of these things that I learn and advocate with our congressmen and with the staff of our senators to say we need to be paying attention to this, because the decisions you're making up there greatly affect us. If you can imagine making a clean energy goal in the state of Florida as a 75% natural gas state.
Yes.
And with the supply chain issues on solar panels, and with the intermittency of solar, and with the acreage it would take if we did do farm solar to replace that, and then the overbuilding of transmission lines to be able, because you have to overbuild solar to be able to store it then because it doesn't produce electricity during the night and during storms. I mean, solving that science and math equation, it's pretty much impossible. Like, we're at 2% solar now. So, like, no, in Florida. So we're going to goals of like our Florida solar folks, you know, we're talking about collectively where we're going, how we're going to get more solar on board. Like, goals are like getting to 7 to 10% solar, not like 100%. So I think people think because the price, so we were in the city and the thing, it's like shows the price of solar. Well, it looks like $26, and green hydrogen is so expensive, and gas is too dirty, but the price of solar, how they present it, is not a 24/7 electricity model.
That was an interesting
generation.
It's like, okay, yeah, but I can only make it during the sunshine, and then I have to figure out how to store it, and then batteries are limited, and lithium is mined, and is it mined in the way we think it should be? So there are a lot of complicated challenges ahead that we need to figure out for whatever we do with regard to going to a greener, cleaner electric grid and producing energy, and at the same time balancing the affordability and the reliability. I mean, it's critical, you know, to our hospitals and to survival to make sure it's readily available and affordable. And so if you think, oh, all this stuff sounds so easy on the talking points on the news, and then you see the scientists and the engineers and the teams trying to figure out this. And it's a big nut to crack. So.
Well, and when you looked at the from the FMEA, right, you had the past president now from Wauchula, right? I mean, we know how big Wauchula isn't, right? But then you also have Orlando. You've got the Keys. So there are there are municipalities that are looking at us. And where there's us looking at others, so the stage is wide for where we've been and where we're going.
I heard an announcement Thursday about the General Motors partnering with Flying J and Pilot Truck Stops to do 500 high-speed chargers.
Yep.
$750 million to do 2,000 of them.
Oh my goodness.
$750 million to do 2,000 of them. And they are chargers that in 10 minutes give any electric vehicle another 150 miles, essentially.
That's impressive.
Well, you know, it was mentioned.
But just think of that infrastructure.
Yeah. But it was mentioned even in the.
Right, and then that's the whole other side. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. It was mentioned in the discussion of the EVs. You know, the state of Florida could probably, you know, generate somewhere about $12.5 billion in the next number of years as EVs become more popular and people buying them. And I think it was mentioned, I wrote it down, where they're saying by 2030 again, because that 2030 mark has always been like the number. I think last year when Commissioner Matt and I went and we were reporting, the EVs still was a subject matter. 2030 was an actual kind of year, and they said by 2030, Florida alone will have 1.6 million, you know, EVs on the road. But then to think about the number of EVs on the road and having to share the road with those of us that are using gas, you know, the problem would come there is road usage. Mm-hmm. You know, and how do you go about making sure those EVs that are on the road, you know, are being able to share the cost of the use of the road, mm-hmm. you know? So that was another thing that mentioned that could be problematic as we're looking at EVs becoming more popular and being used here in our way of getting around. Only last thing I wanted to mention is this, and that was some utility risk that was brought in one of the discussions. That is, we got to look at the future costs for volatility, climate change. We got to look at leveraging and how we can have policies for leveraging the use of our utility, governance as well, and cyber risk was talked about so poignantly. Cyber risk are involved, competitiveness among the utilities and those who are not, you know, we call as public utilities versus those that are not public utilities, and extreme weather, you know, kind of situations that we're dealing with all the time, especially here in our state. So I found that, when you say those meetings, like you said, Commissioner Music, and as well as Commissioner Mann, when she gets out one of the meetings, she's just so glowing, like, oh, did you enjoy church? Well, yeah.
I want to go to that session, right?
Yes, but still, as information that's provided, and hopefully with staff that are there, our staff that is there, to be able to absorb and receive additional information too. But now, I think one of my biggest takeaways was making sure our utilities being modernized, modernization of our utilities to be able to support, the operation of being again a utility that would be having energy available, but also not available, reliable, and so sustainable. But we could need modernization of the utility itself to be able to provide these situations. So that was a question I asked a couple of our staffers that were there. How are we doing this? How are we making sure we got the proper tools in place to make sure we have things that to make sure we're more modernized, equipped properly to provide the services that we need to have as far as the utility is concerned?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue, and it makes you realize why little increments of change are so important, and just ramping this. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. There again, I would like to address the road diet a minute.
Sure. That'd be great.
I guess, Kevin, would you give us some ideas on what happened that evening? As far as we had response and people there, and if was there a consensus? Did we take a survey, or was there?
This is our July 11th meeting that we had with DOT presented the road diet to citizens.
Thank you, Kevin Cook, Director of Communications with the City of Lakeland. The Florida Department of Transportation, along with City of Lakeland staff, were in attendance at the RP Funding Center for the July 11th meeting, where we look for public input. My discussions with FDOT, we had at one point about 150 people there. I'll have to get you a total count. I don't know if Brian has a total count yet, but at one point, do you want to come and share that a little bit? 118? So 118 is what the total count was. So it was well attended, and the discussion as we go around the room with those that we had information commissioners, where our guests could come and share their thoughts, especially with detailed storyboards. So it looked as if and sounded as if, especially from the feedback from Florida Department of Transportation, that it was well received and it met all expectations.
Thank you, sir.
And we have a meeting this week to go over the details of the Florida Department of Transportation as we prepare to present to the commission.
There's a coincidence that walked into the room.
Yeah, somebody's listening.
God bless him.
And again, I still think in order to fix Dixieland, we need to do rezoning, and we've got to find parking. Dixieland cannot thrive without additional parking. It's flat, simple.
Okay. Mr. Barnby.
For the record, Chuck Barnby with Community Economic Development. If I understand the question is since the public meeting was held last Monday, is the question kind of where do we go from here towards the city?
That would be the logical progression, yes, sir.
We do have a meeting scheduled with DOT and the Citrus Connection tomorrow afternoon to compile comments, kind of get everybody's impression on how everything went, any outstanding data requests that we have. One of the things that we've heard is from the surrounding neighborhoods, just confirming or asking for more data about the traffic impacts on Missouri, New York, South Boulevard specifically. But are there other locations where we need additional data collection to kind of figure out what we need to do as a city to help manage traffic on those local streets? And so we need to figure that out as well. I think really it's just packaging that data, coming up with a staff recommendation, and then being prepared to come to the commission sometime later this summer. We haven't talked about specific dates or anything like that yet, but the intent would be is to try to get this taken care of probably late summer, early fall, depending on how the conversation goes tomorrow afternoon. The survey should wrap up, if not today, in the very near future. So we will have some good information from which to base a recommendation on and try to keep everything moving forward.
Okay, good. Any specific comments? Parking, can you comment on his parking?
I know in the past when the CRA has conducted studies specifically looking at parking, it was always kind of the age-old issue of it wasn't the number of spaces that was the problem, it was where they're located was the problem. I think that's something that still has to be, and I'll look at Mr. Ruiz here, but I think that's something that has to be part of any conversation we have about the overall vision of Dixieland and the surrounding areas is what are the true parking demands with the businesses that are locating there today. We do have a lot of surface lots that are a block to the east or to the west, and so that has to play into a role. I mean, we need willing participants to offer up that inventory. I know that when we did look at it as part of the Florida Avenue project itself on what can we accommodate in terms of on-street parking, it was like 40 spaces. It was a very minimal number for the amount of impact that it would have on the capacity of the roadway. So certainly within the envelope of Florida Avenue itself, parking is not really, it's not a viable solution there, but I think that's kind of the continuation of you know, what does our zoning allow and not allow just off the corridor. You do start getting into historic neighborhoods that have parking restrictions as well. So I mean, we are going to continuously look at that issue as the businesses start to locate within that business district.
Excellent. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Walker.
I want to just mention, I thought the meeting was a good attendance as it was, and just to see the conversations that were held. I know, and of course, being there, along with a couple of my colleagues, the mayor, of course, and the Commissioner of Music, I thought was there. I saw you there. City Manager Ralston was there, but being able to see, excuse me?
I was there.
I said, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
I missed it. Mr. Mayor was there, y'all. So anyway, just to see the kind of conversations that were held, you know, seeing folk, you know, being able to be, I guess, very in tune with what their thoughts were and what their thoughts were not. It was good to have, you know, have those, I guess, employees there as well as our staff, there to be able to listen and hear what the citizens wanted to say. And that's good. I think you make sure you heard the comments and comments being well taken. So I thought that was a good thing. I want to mention before I conclude my comments, I think there was this past week too at the Dream Center, there was a pavilion dedication. And I know it was because of being at FMEA along with my other colleagues, was not able to be there for that. But I have seen that particular area really just enhance the services that are being done there.
Remarkably.
And now you got a kind of similar to what I guess you would call what we see at Park. Now you got on the east, you got Dream Center on the west, and services, and I guess they somewhat mirror the kind of services they're providing.
Yes.
Not everything being alike, but still, you know, reaching into a particular element of our city that need help and support. And we got partners coming along from all over the city helping both places, Parker Street and Dream Center. But that pavilion is very nicely done on the property there. And I know the services are being well taken care of, being used.
Agree 100%.
Yes.
Great comment. I want to flip back to road diet if I could for just a second. Two things, Chuck. One, I was surprised with how positive the comments were at that session by most people, and an interesting a level of understanding that I think for the project that I wasn't sure citizens were broadly aware of. So I think that says a lot about the recent communications that have taken place, and and there's still some misinformation. Secondly, what does the time schedule look like to really get to finalizing what we're going to do with that area, in your opinion, if you're globally kind of guessing?
I mean, we're probably, before we start moving towards actually constructing a permanent solution for the corridor, I think we're still probably in that 5-year range, because as you might imagine, nothing happens quickly on a state roadway in an urban environment. I say that because DOT is going to want to formalize its documentation for its processes to take the lanes off the road. And I think based on some conversations we've had with the district secretary, we're not talking PD&E study at this point or anything, project development and environmental study or anything that's multi-year in nature. So if we say less than a year for that process, then we have to have funding for design, and that design is probably going to take about 2 years. And the reason why I just say that is that we don't know, with the stormwater issues we've traditionally had on Florida Avenue and the underground utilities within that corridor, it's going to be a fairly complicated stretch of road to design. And so that's probably a typical two-year process. I'm not anticipating that we would require right-of-way, but we need to also pull together the funding plan for construction. So that's why I say 5 years, because right now there's nothing budgeted in the 5-year work program. I think in terms of what we've been looking at internally based on what CRA has already allocated and our own resources, that we're probably in good shape to provide a substantial amount of funding for the design. It's really the construction phase then becomes the big X factor on how quickly we can get that funded. That's something that would require a conversation not only with DOT but also the TPO to get Florida Avenue as a complete street on the priority list and high enough on the priority list to be able to move it forward quickly. What I'll also kind of note is, as well as we've got 3 major corridors that we're looking at in central Lakeland right now: Lakeland Hills, Memorial, and of course Florida Avenue. Lakeland Hills, the full reconstruction of Lakeland Hills is scheduled for fiscal year 24. So what we want to do is make sure that we don't overlap with Lakeland Hills, because that, all the way from Parkview up to Granada, that's a full reconstruction of the whole roadway. So Lakeland Hills may very well be down to 2 lanes for that entire, probably 2-year construction period. So it's a balancing act, and so if we can get Lakeland Hills done, then move to Florida Avenue. Memorial Boulevard is the one that's probably 8 to 10 years out, so we've got some time on that. But we don't want to have Florida and Lakeland Hills under construction at the same time.
No.
So you would say that we will leave those concrete bunkers in place for about 5 years before it's replaced?
That's kind of my best guess at this point. And in the meantime, we definitely have some homework to do in terms of the decision on what the ultimate cross-section is, getting the design fully funded and underway, and then putting together the funding plan for construction. And the funding plan for construction is definitely the big item that we've got to get with DOT, the TPO, and others to make that happen. That's a big one.
Love to see everything we could do to take a couple of years off that process in a coordinated way.
We will work very hard to do that.
All right, sir. Other comments? Yes, Commissioner.
Just to comment on that, I wished I had not finished my water to choking on that time frame there. I'll tell you, and I have my own personal opinion about the road diet, but I will tell you from the individuals that I spoke there, it was interesting because everyone that I talked to came in thinking it was going to be a lecture. They're like, "Oh, I thought we were coming to be lectured on," And but the way they had it set up with 8 or 10, whatever the learning charts were around, I thought was very very well played. I thought that it was very good. And then in the center they had a 12-foot aerial photograph of the area. So I thought the information that they gave, to answer your question, was very good. I thought that the experts they had at each one of the locations, they had a Citrus Connection, talking about the different lines they had there and where their stops are and how that's been, which was interesting to me because I wondered, and I told him this, I said, I wonder why I hadn't really thought much about the buses is because they haven't been stopping. They've been going around, and they said it's actually their new route is actually better. So that was probably one of the positive things that I took out of a very frustrating, scenario. But no, I thought that again that it was well attended and the information was very good. So.
And I have to say, Cindy Glover, our community engagement specialist, she did a phenomenal job. Yes. And obviously Kevin and Jamin and our communications team, they really showed how fortunate we are to have folks that can boil down complicated items like a road diet to bite-sized chunks that are very informative and easy to understand. And so we very much appreciate their work on all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Took a little wind out of our sails. Anybody else want to comment on anything else? All right.
I'll do it real quick.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
on a happy note, and not 5 years in the making, but the Florida Children's Museum, I got to take a tour last week.
Oh, wow.
And I am so excited.
Wow.
Lakeland POW has an area that they sponsored up in the city.
Yep.
I'm going to get all the words wrong, up in the city complex part. And so,
That's gonna be nice.
and several people we know have contributed to the seedlings, which is for toddlers and babies. And it's very well thought out since we're talking about ADA and celebrating the ADA's anniversary. There are markers for children who might be on the spectrum, so they know they have to stand on a yellow circle until it's their time to check in, and then you follow all the colors throughout, so all the colors denote where they're supposed to be and what activities are going on. And
Nice.
it has so many rich opportunities for children from Lakeland as well as beyond, and so that's one thing that will be sitting at Bonnet Springs for years and years and years to come. But it's Explorations 5, my children totally enjoyed, going there and doing kinder music there and other programs and, pushing their little Publix carts in there. But this new museum, as choked up as you got about, the park itself, that choked me up is that I wish my 19 and 16-year-old were little again. Because
they'll have
it
kids
has
and you can take
rich,
them.
I know, it's just going to have rich programming. United Way, Family Fundamentals with Success by 6 will be out there. So it has an outreach component that we've never really seen before. It'll be boots on the ground and supporting all families. So it was awesome.
Good. And the Children's Museum closes August 5th
Yes,
for the move.
Explorations.
Or Explorations,
and
right.
then they'll open in November.
So that'll be
Just sooner than 5 years.
All right.
It'll distract us all. It's not Chuck's fault.
That's what he gets for
I'll
walking
blame
back in,
DOT.
right?
That's a DOT.
Oh, have you been to Bonnet Springs Park?
All right, any other comments at all? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
I love it when he says that.